There's a moment no one warns you about. The moment you stop feeling everything for everyone else and finally start feeling yourself. It's not what you think it looks like. There's no celebration, no fireworks, no sudden wave of peace washing over you. In fact, it feels more like loss. Like something inside you has gone quiet. Something that used to make you feel needed, valuable, alive. And in its place, there's just stillness. If you spent your entire life absorbing other people's pain, carrying emotions that were never yours, being the one everyone turns to because you just get it, then healing isn't going to feel like relief. It's going to feel like betrayal. Betrayal of the identity you built around being the one who feels deeply, and that terrifies you. But here's what most people won't tell you, and what Carl Jung understood over a century ago. The empath who finally heals doesn't become cold. They don't lose their gift. What actually happens is far more unsettling than that. They begin to see clearly, and what they see first is everything they were avoiding inside themselves by pouring into everyone else. That's the uncomfortable truth. Your sensitivity was real, your empathy was genuine, but somewhere along the way, it also became a hiding place. A beautifully noble hiding place, but a hiding place all the same. And today we're going to walk through what Jung's work reveals about what really happens when an empath stops hiding and starts healing. Because if you've been feeling strange lately, disconnected from people you used to rush toward, unmoved by chaos that once consumed you, you're not broken. You may be waking up, and that changes everything. The first thing that happens when an empath begins to heal is the hardest. You start to feel your own pain. For years, maybe decades, you've been so tuned into everyone else's emotional frequency that you forgot you had one of your own. Other people's sadness gave you purpose. Their crises gave you structure. You became the listener, the healer, the one who holds space. And it felt meaningful because it was. But it also kept you very, very busy. Too busy to sit with your own grief, too needed to ask what you needed. Jung called this the shadow, not the darkness in others that you were always so skilled at sensing, but your own. The feelings you pushed aside, the anger you swallowed, the loneliness you never named because you were too occupied naming everyone else's. When healing begins, that shadow doesn't stay hidden anymore. It rises. And it doesn't ask permission. You might find yourself crying for no reason, feeling rage at situations you thought you'd forgiven years ago. Old memories surface, not as stories, but as sensations in your body. And the instinct is to reach for someone else's problem again, to go back to what you know, to lose yourself in being useful. But something has shifted. The old pattern doesn't fit anymore. And that is the first sign you are healing, even if it feels like falling apart. The second thing that happens is lonelier. You begin to withdraw, not from the world, but from the version of yourself the world got used to. Jung wrote extensively about the persona, the mask we construct to navigate social life. For the empath, this mask is often built around warmth, availability, emotional generosity. You became the person who always answers the phone, always knows what to say, always puts others first. And people loved that version of you. They relied on it. Some of them needed it. But healing asked you to set that mask down, not permanently, not cruelly, just long enough to ask a terrifying question. Who am I when I'm not taking care of someone? This is where people around you start to notice. They sense the shift before you can explain it. You're less available. You don't rush in the way you used to. You pause before saying yes. And some people will call this selfish. Some will say you've changed, and they won't mean it as a compliment. But Jung would recognize this moment. He called it the beginning of individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are beneath the roles you've been performing. It is not selfish. It is necessary. And it is one of the bravest things a person can do, because you are choosing your own wholeness over other people's comfort. The third shift is the one that confuses empaths the most. Your boundaries start to grow, and your guilt grows with them. You say no to a friend and feel sick about it for days. You stop answering a text immediately, and the anxiety is almost unbearable. You cancel plans because you genuinely need rest, and a voice inside you whispers that you are abandoning everyone who counts on you. This guilt is not proof that you're doing something wrong. It is the dying sound of an old pattern. For most of your life, your worth was tied to your ability to feel for others, to carry what they couldn't, to be the emotional anchor. Boundaries feel like a betrayal of that identity, because in a way, they are. You are betraying the version of yourself that believed love required self-erasure. Jung understood that guilt often accompanies growth. When you step away from a role the unconscious has been performing for years, the psyche resists. It throws up fear, shame, the conviction that you are becoming a bad person. But you're not becoming bad. You're becoming real, and the difference between those two things is everything. The fourth thing that happens is quiet. Almost invisible. You start to recognize where your emotions end and someone else's begin. This might sound simple. It is not. For the unhealed empath, the emotional boundary between self and other is almost non-existent. You walk into a room and absorb the tension. A friend tells you about their breakup, and you carry the grief home like it happened to you. Someone is angry near you, and your nervous system responds as if the anger is yours. Healing draws a line, not a wall, a line. You begin to notice that you can witness someone's pain without diving into it. You can hold compassion without holding their weight. This is not numbness. This is differentiation. And Jung would say this is one of the most important psychological achievements a person can reach, the ability to be deeply connected to others without losing yourself in the process. At first it feels wrong, like you've lost your superpower, but what you've actually lost is the compulsion. The gift remains, the drowning stops. The fifth shift is where things begin to open up. You discover that your empathy was never the problem. The wound underneath it was. Many empaths develop their sensitivity in childhood, in environments where they had to read the room to stay safe. A parent's mood became a weather system you learned to predict. Tension in the house became a frequency you trained yourself to detect before it turned into something worse. You didn't choose to become this attuned, you adapted, and that adaptation saved you. But what saved the child can exhaust the adult. Jung believed that healing is not about removing your gifts, it is about understanding their origins. When you finally look at the wound beneath the empathy, the fear of not being loved unless you are useful, the belief that your feelings matter less than everyone else's, the old conviction that the world is only safe when you are managing other people's emotions, then the empathy transforms. It stops being a survival mechanism. It becomes a conscious choice. And there is an enormous difference between feeling everything because you can't help it and choosing to feel deeply because you want to. The sixth and final shift is the one Jung might call the real beginning. You stop performing healing. You start living it. The healed empath doesn't announce their boundaries. They simply have them. They don't explain why they need solitude. They just take it. They don't agonize over whether they're being kind enough. They trust that kindness and self-preservation can coexist. This is what individuation looks like in practice. Not perfection, not isolation, not the absence of feeling, but a grounded, centered presence that comes from finally knowing where you end and the world begins. Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. For the empath, that journey is longer than most because you spent so many years becoming who everyone else needed you to be. But the arrival, when it comes, is profound. You are still sensitive. You still feel deeply. But now you feel yourself first. And from that place, the love you give is no longer a sacrifice. It is an overflow. So, if you're in the middle of this right now, if the world feels quieter than it used to, if the people who once needed you seem further away, if you're sitting alone more often and wondering whether something is wrong with you, let me offer you this. Nothing is wrong. Something is finally right. You are not losing your empathy. You are gaining yourself. And that, according to everything Jung ever wrote about the human soul, is the entire point.